Hi, I'm Tim. I'm going to be doing a series of videos focusing on setting up a home network from start to finish using Grandstream network devices, which, like Unify for example, has its own ecosystem with built-in network controller for both local access and also a free cloud-based controller for both remote and local access. So in this first part here of this video, I'm going to be doing unboxing of 3 network devices which I'm using initially to set up my network. We'll also go through some basic specs that the products have as well. So in future video series, I'll take you through setting up devices one by one. So keep a lookout for future videos in the series 2. It might be an idea to hit the subscribe button and also the bell notification icon so you know when I launch future videos in this series. So without further delay, let's unbox and take a look at this Grandstream firewall router model GWN7003. So let's get to it now. So here we are. And here's the box, and this is router firewall, and it's a model GWN7003. Now it's in a plain cardboard box, or fairly plain anyway, just with the Grandstream logo and also at the top there the QR code. Also on the label you will find the serial number and also the MAC address. Now the MAC address, which is labelled on each of the Grandstream devices, is actually the password as well to log into the admin user account on each device. So each Grandstream device has its own separate password, so there's no default password for all devices, and the password is set as the MAC address, which you can find on the label and also on the device itself. So let's start by unboxing this. And inside the box we have the quick installation guide. As you will see here, this is just a little booklet which tells you how to connect the multi-WAN gigabit VPN router model GWN7003, and it also supports model 7002 as well. So put that to one side. Then in the box we have the power supply adapter, and this actually just plugs into the normal socket on the wall and then connects into the back of the router as you would with any power supply adapter. This is a UK based adapter because I'm based in the UK. Put that to one side as well. Also in the box we have a Ethernet cable. Now let's just open this and see what type it is, whether it's Cat5 or Cat6, and looking at the actual cable, it's a UTP Cat5e cable. I won't be using this because I already have Cat6 and Cat6a cables. Also in the box we have a grounding cable, which can be used, for example, if you're rack mounting it and you have grounding facilities in your rack. Also in the box there's 2 little brackets which mount either side of the actual router itself, and in the bag as well there's also the screws for the actual brackets. Then we have the actual firewall router itself. Now this is not too heavy. It has a dual ARM Cortex A53 1 GHz processors in it, 9 gigabit Ethernet ports, and these are the Ethernet ports, 9 of those. So it's actually a lot more useful than having, say, 4 or 5 ports on the majority of routers on the market. So you could actually get away with a larger home network using only 9 ports and get away without having a switch if needed be, which makes it a lot more versatile in slightly larger than standard networks if you're, for example, not using Wi-Fi for many devices. Moving across, there's also a PoE import, so it's a power over an Ethernet import, which can be used to power the actual router itself rather than using the power brick. So that's the port 9. So you don't have to use PoE for that port. You can actually make use of it as an Ethernet port. So there's 9 Ethernet ports in total from there to there. Then we also have 2 SFP module ports. So take the plastic covers out of one of those and just show you there's the SFP port. Now both of these SFP ports can accept fiber modules which are 2.5 gigabit compatible. So these SFP ports will actually go up to 2.5 gigabit rather than most standard ones which only are 1 gigabit. So these will actually go to 2.5 gigabit. Say, for example, if you want to use one of these as a WAN connection, you could actually have your ISP supplying you with a 2 gigabit WAN connection. So this port, in fact, either of those 2 SFP ports would supply a WAN connection and give you 2 gigabits per second speed. Moving across, we have then the reset hole where you would put pin in to factory reset it, and then across there right at the end we have the LED which changes colour depending on what the router is doing. Oh, and also at the far left hand side here we have a USB 2 port. Now any of these ports, whether it be port 1 to 9 or either of the 2 SFP ports, will and can be configured as either WAN connections or LAN connections. So you can change and swap them about, and you can have more than one WAN connection if you so wish. So it can actually have WAN failover. NAT throughput is up to 2.2 gigabits per second with an IPsec throughput of up to 530 megabits per second. It can either be desktop or wall mounted. Now it did actually mention somewhere in some documentation that I've seen, which I can't actually find at the moment, where it did actually say it comes with brackets to mount it in a rack. However, the brackets supplied are only ears that go on the side, as you'll see here. So they're actually just for wall mounting and not rack mounting. So I will inquire, get in touch with my contact at Grandstream to see what the option is about rack mounting this. Now it also supports QoS and has a comprehensive firewall along with application, protocol and content filtering, and it can also support up to 100 VPN tunnels. And like I touched on earlier in the video intro here, it also has its built-in network manager like Unify does, and this Grandstream one supports up to 150 access points in its built-in controller, or if you're using, say for example, the cloud-based controller, it can support an unlimited number of access points. PoE support on this router is in port 1 and 2, and both of these ports support either 48 volt passive or IEEE 802.3 AF PoE support, which can supply 12.95 watts per port. So this could actually be used, and I will be using it initially one of these PoE ports to supply power to the wireless access point, which I'll touch on in a future video. We'll go through setting up each of these devices as well in future videos. So all in all, this looks like a great little powerful router, and also with a competitive price of around $135 at the time of recording this video. And it looks good, and I can't wait to get it set up in a future video, and hope you're looking forward to me setting this up as well. So now let's move on without going into detail about the internals of this router. We'll go on and move forward and take a look and unbox the Wi-Fi 6 access point, and that is for model GWN7665. So here we are with the Grandstream model GWN7665 Wi-Fi 6E access point, and again we have the plain packaging just with the Grandstream logo and also the QR code in the top right hand corner. Also on the label there's the serial number and also the MAC address, which is the password to access the device. As with all Grandstream devices, I said that each one has its own MAC address, which is the admin password for each device. There's no default admin password for all devices. So let's open the box, and inside the box we have the usual quick installation guide, so put that to one side. Then inside a plastic bag, which of course we can recycle, we have the actual Grandstream Wi-Fi 6E access point. Also in the bag there's a little sticky label with the SSID and also the PIN number and Wi-Fi password, and again the MAC address for the actual access point itself. So you can actually put that in a book, for example, if you wanted to. So put that to one side, keep that safe. Looking at the back of the actual access point, there's from left to right the actual reset button, which is again recessed here. Moving across, we have the 1 gigabit Ethernet port, which is and supports PoE. Then next to that we have also a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port, which again also supports PoE. So these two ports can power the device, giving it powered by PoE, or of course you can use a PoE adapter, which is supplied separately. And that's all there is on the actual back of the device. There's the recessed plastic pieces there, whatever they're called, which is actually for mounting it on the ceiling or wall. Turning the access point over again, we also have a ring here which lights up depending on what the status of the access point is. It does have a bit of weight to it, and the weight is about 765 grams, and it's probably because of all the antennas and the circuitry inside. With it being tri-band, it does actually support multi-user MIMO 2.2, and it has MIMO on each of the 3 bands, so separate MIMO on each of the 3 bands. Then in the box we have a bit of polystyrene packaging, which I'm sure will probably be changed later on, but it's just there to protect the actual devices and the pieces for mounting so that they don't get damaged in transit. There's the backing plate, which goes on the back of the actual access point, and this just clicks in and rotates to lock it in place. So you would mount that, for example, on a plasterboard ceiling or a wall, wherever you so wish. And then, for example, if you're using a drop ceiling, you would mount this other plastic piece, which is in the box, to the top side of the drop ceiling, and then that plate would go the underside of the actual drop ceiling so that you can fix the access point to it. Also, lastly, in the box there's a packet of screws and fixing brackets, and also some nuts as well, so that you can actually mount the access point without having to supply your own screws and fittings. And that's it for the access point. So let's move on and take a look at the specifications of it. I have to say it looks like a nice access point anyway. Solidly built. I think it's actually, not sure whether it's, I think it's ABS plastic. So for this access point, it can support up to 802.118x Wi-Fi. It is a tri-band access point which supports multi-mode MIMO 2x2 on each of the 3 bands, that is, and it can support up to 384 concurrent clients. It does support advanced QoS, and like the router, it also has its own built-in network controller. So in theory, you could actually have the controller running all your Grandstream access points and have, say, a different router which is supplied, for example, by your ISP. So you could have your ISP supplied router and just have the Grandstream wireless access points and their own controller just controlling the access points. Now, as I said, this access point can be powered by either PoE via either of the 2 PoE Ethernet ports, or it can be supplied by a PoE adapter, which can be purchased separately. The PoE it supports is 802.3 AT, and this access point has the maximum power requirement of up to 22.5 watts. It also supports Bluetooth 5.2, and it supports 2.4 GHz, 5 GHz, and also 6 GHz bands, with channel width for 2.4 GHz is 20 and 40 MHz bandwidth. And for the 5 and 6 GHz bands, it supports channel widths of 20, 40, 80 and 160 MHz. The maximum coverage for this wireless access point is 175 meters, and again it looks like a great little access point. Lots of features, competitively priced, and at the time of recording the price for this is around $130 US. So that's it for the wireless access point. So finally, let's move on to the Grandstream GWN7813 24-port layer 3 managed network switch. So here we are with the Grandstream GWN7813 24-port layer 3 managed network switch. This is the non-PoE version. Now, as you can see, I've already unboxed it because the packaging on my desk here was a bit large and a bit awkward to manage on the desk, so I've just unpacked it. However, it's in the usual Grandstream cardboard box with the label on, MAC address and so on, as you get used to, as you already know if you've been watching this video earlier. So in the box we have the quick installation guide. We have a cable clip, which is to stop the cable being pulled out of the back of the switch when it's powered. We have a set of screws which are for the actual mounting ears, and these are rack mounting ears, and this fits a standard 19-inch rack. There's also some adhesive rubber feet in there should you wish to mount it to a desk. There's the earth wire should you have earthing facilities in your network rack. I don't, so I won't be using that for the time being. And we also have a power cable as well, and this is not a power brick, but it's actually a full power cable, as the switch itself has an internal power supply. So looking at the switch at the front, we have 24 1 gigabit Ethernet ports. These are non-PoE ports, so the ports go from 1, 2 and so on up to 24. Underneath the actual ports we have some little triangular shaped icons, and these are actually lights, so these light up depending on the status of each port at the bottom here. Moving across, we have 4 SFP plus ports. Now these support up to 10 gigabit, of course you need the actual SFP modules to insert into those 4 10 gigabit Ethernet ports. Now having 4 on this switch is actually very useful, I find, with people probably going up to 2.5 gigabit 5 and 10 gigabit networks at home now, because of the faster internet speeds that are slowly and surely becoming available. Moving across, we have a console port should you wish to program it via a console. Then we have the usual reset hole there, which you can use to reset it via putting a pin in the hole. Then next to that we have the power LED, RPS LED, and also the system LED, and these light up depending on the status of the actual switch itself. Now it has plastic covering on the actual switch, but I'll leave that on for the time being until we get it set up to avoid any scratches being done on the front. But it is actually a gloss finish on the front. Looks like a nice switch, it's nice laid out. And at the sides we have 2 heat vents, so it's actually a grill to let the heat and dissipate the heat out, and there's one at the other side as well. So at the back of the switch we have the RPS connector, which is underneath a rubber cover, and this looks like a 4-pin DIN plug which will connect to an interruptible power supply. We have the usual Grandstream label with the model number, serial number, MAC address, and the actual default password for the actual device. Then we have a hole which is used to mount the cable tie connector onto. Then moving across we have the 3-pin power connector which connects it to the internal power supply, and this supports from 100 to 240 volts AC using 50 or 60 hertz. So moving across, finally we have a screw which is for the earth cable to be connected to, should you have earthing facilities of course. So that's the switch. It has a bit of weight to it, and I'm sure that the PoE version is probably a little bit heavier. I'm not sure what the actual weight is, but if I find out I'll put it down in the video description. Now the specs for this switch, as I said, it's a layer 3 managed network switch, which can certainly come in very useful in future videos with the layer 3 facilities. It has again 24 gigabit Ethernet ports, and it can handle a non-blocking throughput of 64 gigabits per second with a switching capacity of up to 128 gigabits per second. The forwarding rate for this switch is 95 million packets per second, and it can cope with up to 4,000 VLANs, but I doubt most of you would need 4,000 VLANs, but then again, who knows. This switch can either be desktop, wall or rack mounted. As I said, it's the non-PoE version, so it's silent in operation. There's no fans in it, so it runs totally quiet. And finally, the price point for this at the time of recording this video is around $230 US. So that's the switch. So let's wrap this up for now. Do keep a lookout for the second episode in the series, when we'll be connecting up the GWN7003 router and getting basic LAN and WAN access in place using the built-in GWN network manager, which is built in to the router, as I said earlier. So I hope you enjoyed this unboxing and basic specs video for these 3 items. Keep a lookout for part 2 coming soon. Thanks for watching. Look after yourselves. Bye for now.